where it wants to flow. There is no floodplain out here, so there's no performance standards if we did propose fill in that resource area. But even though it's not mapped as floodplain, we understand that it is an issue, so we do not want to add any fill to that area. We are proposing to keep the erosion controls in place. It's not too clear what type of fence the applicant is going to end up with. We are proposing a fence around the pool that would tie into the deck, but she may install a fence along the top of the pool itself like you see on most above-ground swimming pools. If that is the case, it would be less work within the Commission's jurisdiction, and we wouldn't think it would something that would warrant coming back to this Commission for a minor change like that.
The sound is not on.
People online cannot hear?
Maybe I need to get closer to the mic.
Let me just check with the TCAT.
Check with the technician. Rode my bike today for the first time in close to a week.
Oh, must have felt good. That was a great day for it.
Yeah, well, the last 4 have been awful.
Oh, yesterday rained all day.
Are we good?
Working on it. Need a minute.
Is there a problem? There is?
He's not sure there's a problem, but
Oh,
I'm assuming you're getting a text message.
or is it just you need to speak up more? I don't
It could be. I'm going to check with my client. I know she's listening.
We're good.
Okay.
know. Good? He could speak up anyway.
So according to Gail, the client, she said, I can't hear anything. I heard Aaron at first.
Yeah, I think we should
I
be
lifted
good
the
now.
microphone
Can you
up.
lift the mic up and
Yep.
speak a little louder?
Yep.
So people,
I'm happy to do that.
All right.
good.
So I know I just said a lot, but it's my understanding, too, there's no question with respect to the delineated bordering vegetative wetland boundaries. I did check with Georgia today, and it's my understanding there's no question as far as the limits of the resource areas. So it's truly a buffer zone activity that's being proposed in an area that's existing maintained lawn. We have requested a waiver for the work within the Commission's no disturb zone and no build zone. That's part of the permit application. We are well below the 20% threshold. I think we're around 6%.
Yeah.
Following construction, the minor grading that is proposed would be loamed and seeded. So it's grass now, it would be grass post-construction.
What's its current condition?
It's maintained lawn. Yeah. Yeah, and it's my understanding after talking to our client that when they purchased the property, it was always lawn. And I believe they've been there since 2005, plus or minus.
Could you just point out on the drawing where the different jurisdiction lines are?
Sure. Yeah, so we have a wetland edge here, and then we have a wetland edge here. So the 35 comes in like this.
So part of the house is in the 35 already?
Yeah.
It is, yeah. And the 50 comes in like this. The 100 is out here. So
So the
almost the
house-
whole lot is within the 100-foot buffer
The
zone.
house is in the, pretty much entirely in the no build.
No, only a small
No.
portion of the house here is in the no-build, and a small portion of the steps here are in the no-build.
Well, what about the no disturb? Where's that? Will you show that line again?
Yep, here's the no disturb here. And I've got it colored in blue on this plan, if it makes it a little easier, and I can bring it
It's
closer.
kind of small.
Yeah.
So the reality is, today, this house wouldn't be built on this lot.
Right.
Shouldn't have been built.
Well, there may have been other houses maybe.
Yeah,
that
and the
should-
others in the neighborhood as well.
The whole neighborhood is.
Where, there's a drainage easement here as well, right?
Yep, so there's a 30-foot wide drainage easement that comes in here. This is one side of it, and this is the other side here. And it's
What are
my
the-
understanding, sorry.
The restrictions on that easement.
So it's my understanding that, is it Stephen King was consulted to see if there was any issue with respect to the above-ground swimming pool in the easement, and the answer was no. There is no issue with the swimming pool.
Okay, now, I think Georgia mentioned to me that they set up the pool and take it down annually? Is that right?
Yeah, that's been the past practice, but we'd like to get permission to keep it up year-round and not have it a requirement to take it down. In our,
There was no requirement.
Where was
They
the
were just
requirement to take
taking it down, right?
yeah, I don't think they had a
I don't
permit.
understand what, haven't had a pool like that for 20 years, that people would ever take it down and put it up. It's like a permanent kind
You
of
have to,
pool.
well, you have to get a permit every time you do it, too.
Well, you'd want to keep it up too, just because the surface beneath the pool
Right.
is unstable.
Sand,
Yeah.
it's like a sand base.
And it'd be nice to keep that covered.
So if I could just, how does the easement is going, continues under the pool?
Yes, yeah.
What does the easement do?
So it's a drainage easement.
Well, will that affect the drainage with the pool sitting on top of it?
No, because we still have a third of the easement open. And
Can you
even,
show me that?
yep, I
That's what
can.
Steve King was saying, that you didn't have a problem with the pool.
So the grade,
Yeah, I
the
just
grade
wanna
at
know
the grade at the wetland here is roughly 94. And the grade on this side,
We can't really see that.
No, he's just checking the
Yeah.
numbers.
the grade on this side is almost 93. So it drops about a foot across the back of this lot. We're proposing to keep that grade dropping across. So even though the easement is here and here, this is the easement, the pool is in roughly 2/3 of the easement, the elevation on a third of that, it remains open,
What's the width of the easement?
30 feet.
30 feet? Wow.
Yeah.
Do you want to know why that was put in, why that was there? Why they had an easement?
I can guess, just based on the
Yeah.
research that we've done. One of the older plans shows a ditch, or makes reference to a ditch, not just here, but all throughout the subdivision, and that was on the plan from the 70s from Hayes Engineering.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
After speaking with our client, the ditch wasn't there when she purchased the property. And it's not clear if the ditch truly was a ditch. I looked at some historic aerials before the hearing just to see if I could make heads or tails of it. And it's very tough to tell because it's wooded and the photos back then weren't great. But even though there's not a ditch there today, it's clear to us that it's important to keep that path clear and for water to continue to flow.
And where will the water flow? From where to where?
It's gonna go in this direction. And then eventually it wraps around and then goes under, I think it's Elliott Street.
You know, with the disturbance this past spring where there was some material brought in, is that affecting the effectiveness of the easement?
So it's my understanding that fill was brought in here, which everybody is aware of, underneath the
Right.
pool, and a small amount of fill was brought into the backyard. An attempt was made to put a pipe in, a small pipe, just to keep the water
That
flowing.
plastic pipe?
Yeah, that
that's
pipe's
doing
coming out.
nothing.
It's coming out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's part of this application, and I was told it was inches of material that was put in this location. So when the pipe comes out, that can easily be regraded to keep a continuous slope going in this direction.
Okay, go ahead, Ann.
When we originally were talking on the site visit, someone was talking about a gravel path to move the water. Now, I don't know where that, I was around, they were talking around the pool and down out into the area. Is that,
So we are proposing some grading here. Right now, it's about 93.3. We're proposing to cut it by 3/10. So we're only talking a very, very small amount of grading. It can be done using hand tools even.
okay,
Oh, I'm sorry, you done,
yeah,
Ann?
okay, so
There's just-
we're
there's-
not
there's only
talking
three of
about
us,
a
don't-
gravel path?
We're just,
Nope,
Okay,
nope.
That
It'll
was
be
what I-
loamed and seeded.
okay.
It'll be a grass surface if it's approved as currently designed.
go ahead, Mike.
Who's going to do this work? Because frankly, when I looked at what had done by the applicant, I didn't think that he might not have the ability to do a good job on that. So I'm not sure. How's this work being done?
I don't have an answer to that.
We need to know that, I think.
But I mean, they should be able to use whoever they want.
Yeah, oh, yeah,
And
but
they should
someone
be able to.
qualified, not, I mean, is the applicant gonna try to do this himself?
It's possible, but remember too, if this is approved, they'll need an as-built and a certificate of compliance from this commission. So there's a little bit of a belt and suspenders approach there, where this commission will get to review what was done and determine whether or not it's in compliance.
If it gets done.
And if it's not, the commission could issue an enforcement order requiring certain activities, if they deviate from the approved plan, if it is approved.
Well, no, I'm more concerned about who's gonna do it. Whether he's gonna hire a pool company to come out and do this, or if he's gonna try to do it himself.
Yeah, I think they'd like to have the option to be able to do it themselves.
Could we ask the applicant
I don't know about that.
what the reasoning is for taking the pool down annually?
Did they think they were somehow circumventing some regulation as long as they took it down each year? Because it then became a, quote, temporary structure?
Not that I'm aware of. And even a above-ground pool, if it's up year-round, it's still not considered a permanent structure.
Yeah, I know, so I'm wondering what their thinking was to take it down, and then you're dispersing, if you're
Or just-
you're dispersing, what, 5, 7, 10,000 gallons of water out of that pool every time you do that?
Plus the
When
disturbance
normally,
of the
with
ground.
that type of pool, you just drain it below the skimmer,
Yeah,
and you're keeping almost all your water in the pool.
yeah, we're proposing to let the pool sit for at least 3 days, so any chemicals that are in it can dilute to the point where it's safe to carefully dewater, which is typically done every fall, as you say, just to get it below the skimmer. But I don't have an answer as to why it came down every year.
They're asking for a waiver to have that pool within the 35 no disturb. And they want to do that every year? So
Well, we're not proposing to take it down every year. That's not part of our
Wouldn't be
application.
able to, I don't think. I don't think we would.
no, we don't want that, no.
No.
Okay, does anyone else, questions, more questions?
I have more questions.
Go ahead.
Yeah. The drainage that occurs, does that go across other people's property? Or does it just sort of spread out somewhere?
No, it's my understanding it's continuous through several properties. It flows across our property.
So and you said you saw water ponding?
Yeah, well, I saw the photos that one of the
Can
abutters
you show me
showed.
where that would have been on there?
I believe it's in this location here.
And someone else's property?
Yep.
All right.
Yeah, it doesn't start here. It starts somewhere else and flows through this parcel also,
Okay, but the drainage is supposed to be going this way?
this way,
Which way?
right to left.
Yeah, okay. So the ponding that was occurring back there, was the water back going the other way?
No, there's just there's a point here that's a little lower than this backyard. So water has to pond, fill up before it spills into this yard and goes across.
Yeah. And so that's just gonna continue that way?
Yeah, which is why we can't propose to fill this, because we will dam the water
You'll
and
be
increase
creating a
flooding on the
damming
abutting
effect.
parcel. Right. So the
So-
goal is to keep that flowing.
The way this is designed, there won't be a damming effect?
That's correct.
Well,
Even though you have to build up somewhat for the pool, don't you?
But we're not going all the way across. There's still going to be at least 10 feet, more like 20 feet, that's much lower than where the pool is, that water will continue to flow across.
And Steve King was okay with this?
That's my understanding, yes.
Okay, when you keep saying that's my understanding,
After talking with Georgia,
means you discussed it with somebody and confirmed it?
I did.
I
Yeah.
heard that.
I can also,
Steve King is okay with it.
Oh,
I confirmed with Georgia, this plan was reviewed by Stephen King and everyone's comfortable.
thank you.
And I think that's part of the reason why the hearing was continued from the 13th, just to give him some more time to take a look at this.
Right, and give us a chance.
Thank
to
you.
see.
I
Now,
think
is that-
that's all my questions.
Is that the right-hand side wetland, where, whose property is that?
I believe it's 4 Meadow.
Those two, looks like.
He's on the left and mine's the one that flows through down to LA Street. That goes behind.
So you're downstream, more or
Oh,
less.
he needs to identify himself.
Okay, but it is separate property for Ford Meadow, that, the other wetland?
Yes.
And you said there was a lip, there's a threshold that has to get over before it goes across the drainage easement?
Yeah, maybe half a foot, you know, and then it drops approximately a foot or 9/10 from here to here.
Right.
And that's almost, I don't know, 50 to 60 feet. So it's a gradual slope.
Okay, just to recap, so originally this started as a violation for having the pool there in the first place. The pool was taken down, and then the applicant came back with a notice of intent.
They brought fill in as well.
It brought fill in, and brought in fill, correct. And the applicant came back with a notice of intent where you're requesting to put that pool up and requesting waivers to put it up within, is it in the 35 and the 50
Yes.
entirely?
Not entirely. This is the 35 here. So I'd say at least 2/3 is outside of the 35.
All right.
Yep. But
And as you go in any other direction, you're always in the 35 or 50
yes, unless you put it in the front of the house here,
front yard?
which I don't believe would be allowed, it would be within the commission's no build or no disturb, or both.
Right.
Yeah.
Clearly, this should have came before the commission before any activities had occurred. And I think had it would have been a much different process.
How much fill was brought in?
I heard some discussions at the last hearing from some of the abutters, as much as 5 trucks. I haven't confirmed that number with my client.
Okay, and you're confident that that drainage easement will work as designed?
Yes. Yes, yeah, and this plan was stamped by a licensed professional engineer from our office.
Okay.
Was, would have been nice to go out there yesterday, it rained all day.
You're right.
Some people are cheerful about that.
I think even with all the rain we got, the ground is still very, very dry, and water
It is?
tables are still very low.
You observed that, yeah?
Yeah, not here, but just on other sites.
Then they rain all summer.
Yeah.
Well, those leaves in my yard are plenty wet. Okay, so the board, any other questions before I open it up to the public?
No.
Mike?
No, thanks.
Does anyone have any questions, comments?
So my name is Brendan Ty. I live at 4 Meadow Lane. I am on the right-hand side.
Can you point out where you are? Right there? Where the ponding was?
Yes. So the issue here is the water is coming from the town. There are about 13 or 14 storm drains on Orchard and at the top of Orchard up on Foster Street. So I can't comprehend, no offense, that 14 storm drains were installed and it's only going to be a little bit of puddling. That's just, it's not a true statement. The pictures I've shown, the pictures I've shared with Georgia indicate constant flow of water all winter long. And come February, when the snow starts to melt, it becomes a pond from Orchard to Cortland. It's constant water. To evaluate this on the driest summer of the history is unfair. That's the point I'll make there. Number 2, there's a drainage easement. It's there for a reason. This property was afforded something called a Section XIA exclusion, where they put a property in the middle of the wetlands. All of this was wetlands. That's not under dispute. This property was given an exception. And you're right, the people before, the current owners, did mow the lawn, and I firmly believe that over the years, the depression, the brook, whatever, the edges of this stream melted into the water and became flat. I'm afraid that this easement, or this berm, the 50 tons of gravel, whatever we want to call it, will eventually flow out. and back up and onto my property, as well as the Martins, as well as the Martins, all the way back to Orchard. I think the downstream implications are too strong here, and I would ask you to reconsider it. You know, Mike, I'm going to look at you. A few weeks ago, you said no to Joe Rocco, and your statement was, I'm afraid of what it could look like in the future. So my ask is, short of the town putting in proper drainage, a pipe from Orchard through Cortland, nothing's going to make everybody in the neighborhood happy. That's the ask here. If you approve this for one applicant, I would ask you to approve it for all of us. I have wetlands protected, but there was an exception that was created for this property. So what I would ask you to do is consider attaching to this request an approval for all of us. None of us want to spend the money and put in 50 tons of gravel or drainage. There was a drainage concept here previously, and now that's somehow no longer there. Unless they put in a formal pipe that will not get clogged and will not impact all of us upstream, I can't see you saying yes.
Okay, but you're before,
It's upstream.
the drainage occurs beyond the pool, correct?
The drainage starts here,
Yeah, so,
goes all the way through.
so it doesn't go the other way towards you.
It will now because of
Is
the...
that what I'm trying to understand your argument. Are you saying that water will now drain back into your property?
Yes, I believe that. There is so much loam or gravel that was brought in, it will force the water back and make the pond bigger.
You're basing that on intuition?
No, I've seen it in February. This is a complete pond, and it's not trickling over, it's seeping through the wall.
And you're asking us to take your word for it, and then, you know, they have professional engineers that are certifying that it's... gonna-
I have pictures that show the water flowing.
I just don't see how the pool relates to your problem. I mean, only because I think your problem is the neighborhood problem. The water, you know, that the whole area is
They've
wet.
brought in-
And I'm thinking, how is that pool?
They've brought in so much dirt that it's going to impede the flow of water. And like I said, over the 50 years, the trench that was originally there got matted down through mowing the lawn or normal activity or whatever. This is just going to become more of a challenge for everybody upstream.
Okay.
And furthermore, back to your point on permits, the deck was never permitted. Nothing on this house is ever permitted.
Can I respond to some of those?
Sure, go ahead, please.
So, the same amount of water is going to continue to fall from the sky, whether this pool goes in or not. The drainage that's been in the ground since all these roads around here were constructed isn't going to change whether or not this pool goes in. There's drainage problems out here. What we're trying to prove is that we're not going to make them any worse.
Yeah, and the issue he's saying is the bringing in of 5 truckloads of dirt, or however much dirt, has created a problem.
If, he would be right if somebody filled this whole backyard in and raised the grade several feet, because then we'd be trapping water, we'd be interrupting the continuous flow path across the back of this yard. He's always going to have water here. This is not going to make his situation any worse. If we put more fill back here, sure. And this isn't going to just magically disintegrate and block the backyard. That's going to be a stable base. It's going to be loamed and seeded. That base should not move.
What size pool?
20-foot diameter.
How, 4 feet?
Yep,
How
yep.
many gallon?
I don't know,
That's probably 10,000.
10,000 anyway, right?
yeah. So we're not disputing that there's drainage problems out here. We're just showing you that we're not going to make them any worse.
Right.
One thing, when we were on the site visit, she talked about ponding in her backyard. So I was assuming that the fill was filling in the rut from the drainage that was going along. Is that accurate?
She gets ponding back here too.
Yes.
Yeah, there's no argument there. It's a lot of water.
I know.
But it flows. It doesn't just sit.
Right, okay.
It sits here because there's a depression in this location. This is a continuous slope across the back of the yard.
When we observed it, there was also lawn down there too, as opposed to bushes and shrubs. At the very end, running alongside there too. I don't know if lawn is.
Yeah, this is the edge of woods here.
Okay.
Could you just point out where the dirt was placed?
So right here,
Only in the pool, where the pool is?
and then a small amount to cover that pipe that the property owner put in. The pipe's not doing anything.
Yeah.
It's coming
Yeah,
out.
the pipe's gotta go.
Pipe's gotta go, and it's gonna be important that when that pipe goes,
The pipe should go anyway.
yeah, yeah. And it's important when that pipe goes and the area is regraded, that they stay true to these spot grades that you see on the plan to
So where the
provide.
pipe lays, should that be trenched?
No, no,
What the pipe
and
was trying to do?
there was some talk about putting in a pipe and that would magically make everything better. It makes much more sense to keep the drainage open and not put it into a pipe, because you need a very, very large pipe. It would be underwater, and it would be difficult to get it to daylight. Keeping that open and allowing the water to flow makes much more sense. You put in a pipe when you have to. You probably do. And it sounds like it's a much bigger problem. And maybe you should all get together and have an engineer look at this, because there might be a solution that could help.
Right. because-
I'm not saying you're wrong.
Excuse me, sir? Your name and address?
Bob Brinkley,
Does it-
6 Cortland Road. I do not believe that this process has been upfront from the very beginning. You understand it hasn't been, all of a sudden the pool appears. And there was a pool prior, but it was further in the backyard. It wasn't this pool. This was a new pool. You were told that sand was brought in to level the base. Not true. There was 5 truckloads, and the ad is on, the ad is on Twitter, looking for volunteers to bring it in. 5 truckloads of gravel and sand he asked for. That 5 truckloads disappeared into his backyard. That did not help, cannot help the problem. These grading figures that are on there, I question whether they were done before or after the soil was put there. Because after, yeah, well, they definitely raised the grade, and that exasperated the flooding onto number 4 Baldwin, whatever, the next street over. It just doesn't make any sense that nothing here has been up front, nothing. And it is funny that right after the last hearing, my neighbor received a warning from the water department that he was watering his lawn. Not supposed to be any reprisals or retributions from the process? He was draining his hoses after we had had our sprinkler systems blown out. And he was draining the water out of his hoses. But all of a sudden, he gets a warning. The whole thing smells. Nothing's been done up front, nothing's been done honestly, nothing's been done fairly. The neighborhood's gonna get screwed if you allow this.
Sir?
Actually, can I have some help from him on pointing some things out?
Can you, excuse me?
Can I have some help from this gentleman on pointing some things out? I just
Sure,
want to see where
yeah.
my property is.
Okay.
So we're with 76 feet.
I have no idea.
I also went with Branson Valley's. Do you mind if I do? Yeah, go ahead. So,
Excuse me, could you
You're gonna have to use the
identify
microphone.
yourself?
oh, sorry, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm learning. So, I'm trying to find 76. I'm the rear lot off of,
Still haven't said your name and address.
oh, sorry. Kevin Gibbons, 76 Elliott Street, town meeting member.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. That's
So
precinct
76
3.
Elliott, it's down the hill, that's 62, right?
So, 74 is in front of me, so I get a rear lot, but I back right up to, there's a farmer's wall that's about this side that goes along Gail's property and mine. All the water empties out to Four Meadow and then goes through my property through the farmer's wall again into what used to be the Dollar's property and then behind the Brinkley's house. So it flows through Meadow, or from Orchard through Meadow, ponds down there, that 100-year storm we had about 10 years ago, that flooded up to my house. And I had water in my basement as
Show
well.
us where your house is on this.
Okay, if I can, let's see.
I don't think it shows on this plan.
Well, then just,
What direction?
Is there a locus?
I'm gonna try to share, I got Google Maps up here, I was gonna try to
Yeah.
share Google,
Yeah, good.
Google Maps. Give me 1 second. Oh, it's gonna be hard to see, but there are lot lines on this map, believe it or not.
Okay, so,
This might be you here.
yes. So I'm on the back, so that's me right there, about 30 feet from my house. I've been always told I cannot clear past that. That's I own to this point, where is it? Where am I again? Right there. So I own to this point, and then I border Gales all the way through here. It does pond back here at times, like that 100-year storm. It did come all the way up to the back of my house, but that's what I'm worried about. Is that going to happen again? And if the water gets dammed, is it going to force more water from Orchard to Meadow to me through what used to be the Dollars property and then to the Brinkleys and down now to Elliott Street? So that's what I'm worried about.
but correct me if I'm, you're more or less downstream from this.
Downstream, but I do have farmer's walls, which would block it in, and it has to go through vegetation.
So how would flooding, if you're downstream from 5 Cortlandt Road, how would this project affect that?
Because it would, if it put, like, I think Gail said, her basement got water in it one time. Well, that storm, it's probably the same storm, would come over into my property, into my area, and go to the back of my house, and then go into the ground and come up into my basement.
I think the other gentleman was saying that the water was gonna back up, and you're saying the opposite.
Well, it would come probably from his area, from Orchard. It flows from Orchard, and from probably Liberty too, who knows? But it goes in from there, goes in by his house and behind mine.
I think what we're saying is with this dirt coming in, it'll force the water to find a new place to go. He's going to get it and I'm going to get it. I think that's what we're trying to
It
say.
would be nice if you had some
Engineering data.
engineering figures to back you up, and
I'm
you
not
don't,
an
and we're looking at engineering figures that support what the applicant's saying. And if you had something to, for us to look at, it would have really been helpful. I mean,
I
do you
could-
intend to do that? Hire someone to,
Do I want to have to do that? No. Spend that money? No. But I should.
I will, then fine, I will.
It's getting to I think I said it the last time, it's the way this was done. Mr. Brinkley just said, it's the way this was done.
well, I think the neighbors are ticked off the way it was done. But we're beyond that because we've already violated them and made them take that pool down so that they had to come in the right way. So that happens a lot with us, is that we find people are doing, especially people that don't understand the conservation aspect, and they'll try to do something, we violate them, then they have to come back, and we don't say, well, we're not gonna let you do it the right way. So then they come in properly. So we're only relying, Stephen King is our town engineer. If he says that that's not a problem, and you don't have something, respectfully, if you don't have something to say, well, this is why Stephen King's wrong, what are we to do?
Well, all I can go is by what I see, but it's,
Yeah.
It's saying that,
yeah.
but I think, there's a problem here bigger than 5 Portland Road.
To answer the question, what are you supposed to do? Respect the drainage easement. That was there for a reason.
We are.
No, I'm sorry, 50 tons of gravel does not respect a drainage easement. With all due respect, you're forcing the water to find another place to go.
Just the way, the way it was done. If they had asked us, all of us, I'm sure we could have.
I'm
But
sorry to interrupt.
That's all
We're
right.
hearing from professionals in the field that this easement will work as designed at this project. Everyone else here is coming out in more or less hearsay and saying it's not gonna work, and, for whatever reason you might have. So,
if I got a professional,
No, well, it's anecdotal versus professional opinion, is what I'm saying.
okay. But you do represent
Can
the
I-
client.
May I ask a question?
but it's signed by a certified public engineer. That's on the up and up.
Oh, okay.
Mr. Wilson?
Say again, please, sir? Why don't you come over here and tell us?
You're blocking 2/3 of the drainage easement. I don't see how that can not have downstream impacts. It was 30 feet for a reason.
So I get his point is, and I'll address it to you, the water's coming down, it's gonna still be in the easement, right? The easement's performing? No, so the water will still be in the easement, correct?
It'll pass through the easement.
We are not blocking the flow of
No, but
water.
I'm saying the water's still within that 30-foot,
To, the
is the
pool,
easement still 30 feet wide?
the easement's still 30 feet wide.
And is the
The
water-
pool is going in a portion of that easement.
So when the water comes down and then it hits the pool, it's not gonna go under the pool and
No.
back up again?
No, the whole back side of that easement is the same as it was. And then even beyond the easement, water can flow. Just because it's not an easement, water still flows through the backyard.
Yeah, but I'm just talking about the easement. The water coming through the easement has to now go around the pool, doesn't it?
No, not entirely, because even though the portions of the backyard are outside the easement, they're still much lower than where the pool is. So water's going to continue to flow across the backyard. This project will have no impact on the ability of water to continue to flow across this backyard.
Did we get a letter from Steve?
Not that I'm aware of.
There's a-
No, Aaron? if you
Do
did?
we have
We didn't
something?
receive a letter, but Georgia was in communication with Stephen, I think as late as today, on this. I did have a question for the commission, but not, when you're ready.
You want to
Well, I
make
guess
a point?
I just addressed that last point. There's no proposed modification of the easement itself, so the legal metes and bounds of the easement are not being modified. What Mr. King is saying will continue to work is the overland flow of surface water from the wetland on Plan
Right.
Right to the wetland on Plan Left will continue to work if this plan is affected in the field. And I wanted to add, related to that, staff was recommending to the commission, should they proceed, that we attach a condition to this order that we annually maintenance that for the first 3 years just to make sure that, as some of the abutters have noted, there's any erosion, or if next year's
Yeah.
much wetter and conditions warrant it, that we're out there for the next couple of years to make sure that this plan, works as advertised.
Well, in a sense, putting in the pool in the easement is a modification of the easement, isn't it?
It's, and again, I was not personally involved in the discussions between Stephen and Georgia.
Wondering if we
It's
need
not a
something. I'd like to
modification of
see
the
it in
easement, but
writing. I'd
it's
like to
not
see-
pools, above-ground pools. If we needed to go in there, and let's say we have a conversation subsequent to this permit, that the town, in partnership with the neighborhood, is going to review the drainage for the neighborhood, and it's determined in some future date that there should be a pipe connecting wetland
Right.
right to wetland left, we have all the legal rights we need to put that pipe there. And if at that time, we determine that that pipe should go in a location that that pool is in, the pool's gone. We have the legal rights to put that pipe where we need to put it. The reason that we're comfortable, not happy, comfortable with the above-grade pool, and this is again based on experience in other situations, if they had asked for a shed, the answer would have been no. Permanent structures, no. But an above-grade pool that can be removed, should we decide that we want to exercise rights in our easement.
Yeah, but we don't want it removed.
No, I understand. I'm saying,
No, we're saying,
if we have a larger drainage project 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and the pool is in the way of that plan, the pool can be removed far easier than, say, the garage or the shed. So I've seen this in other instances where this kind of structure has been okayed in easement areas. But obviously, you have to evaluate this situation and whether or not you're comfortable with this proposal.
Okay.
Well,
Uh,
Mr. Chairman,
I just have one quick question. As it currently sits right now with the disruption that has happened this year, is that drainage easement working as it should? Is the drainage flow, I should say, the easement is just a paper exercise?
We would strongly recommend cutting as we propose to help ensure that it's working correctly.
But at present, is it working?
It's working, yes, but this needs to come down about 3/10 to get it back to what we feel is where it needs to be, to match pre-fill grade. And that also includes removing the pipe in the backyard and making sure that that grade doesn't come up when that work's done.
Okay, but say everything stopped for whatever reason, right now, and we had this huge rainstorm tomorrow.
Water would continue to flow right across the back of this backyard, yes.
Okay, that's what I'm asking. Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
This is still gonna have water ponding in it. This had water ponding in it before anything was done here.
Right, because it's a little bit lower,
Yes.
and I noticed the neighbors not.
I agree with that. It does go through there, but it overflows, would overflow and it has.
Right.
And what happens too is, as you flow this way, the wetland gets smaller. So it funnels into a channelized system, which I believe goes into a culvert underneath one of the driveways. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah.
So that is more restrictive than anything that could be done back here. Just the water slowing down to get into that culvert under the driveway.
My feel is it's a much bigger issue than just this one piece of property. I mean, it sounds like you have all kinds of drainage issues over there. So, I know you don't want to hear this, but it falls on the individual landowners. If they have a problem, they've got to hire some professional help and make their case to the town.
Excuse me. But I guess that's what I'm saying. Gail filed a complaint against me for work on my property because I have the wetlands. You made an exception, not you, the board previous in 1977, made an exception for 5 Cortlandt Road. They mow their lawn, and I got in trouble for work on my property. I cut up a tree when it came down in a storm, and she filed a complaint against me.
I don't need to hear.
That's
complaints
fine.
within the neighborhood.
Where I'm going with
just
it-
concerned about the wetlands.
This is where I'm going with that as well. The question then becomes, if we're putting a berm on that property, am I allowed to put a berm on my property?
You'd have to come in with an
Just
application.
file
You'd
an
have to-
NOI.
Yeah.
Then that's what we'll end up doing.
It's just, do we want to see anything from Stephen King, like a report or something? I mean, would the applicant be willing to consider this one more time so we could get something from Stephen King? I mean, it's kind of like, he said,
Well, it's my understanding that's why it was continued from the last meeting. And I know staff has consulted with Mr. King, and I think we heard tonight that Mr. King is
you only have
satisfied
3
with the plan.
members here, you need 2 out of 3 votes, or you can wait till you get a full board.
Well, I guess my point is, I thought that's why we continued the last hearing, so that Mr. King could review this. It's my understanding that he did, and reported to staff that he was
Well, I
fine
know,
with it.
I want to see that.
Right, and you're right, so we could just vote to continue, if that's
Yeah,
what you want to
I
do.
want to see the report.
I don't know that there is a report.
Well,
Well, he could file some sort of affidavit.
something. Yeah,
I mean, you have verbal testimony from Georgia, which I believe she,
Right.
it's my understanding she spoke to Mr. King, and that's why we pushed it off for 2 weeks.
I know, again, it's your understanding that you spoke to Georgia, who spoke to Stephen King. I just want to hear something from Stephen King.
Well, it's completely up to you.
Well,
I mean, water flows downhill. If there's something that blocks the flow of water, sure, it's going to pond upstream drainage.
I would just feel more comfortable voting if I saw something that Stephen King went out, looked at this, and made this recommendation. Maybe the pool should be 15 feet across, and that would take 5 more feet out of the no disturb, no build.
I mean, you don't have to be an engineer to realize that if you're not raising the grade here, water's going to continue to flow as it's flowing today.
Right.
I don't think we need a drainage study to prove that. The grades are on the plan. We're proposing to even lower those grades.
It's not a drainage study, it's seeing what Stephen King looked at and reading that. And that would satisfy me, I think.
I think you need all the information that you need to make an informed decision. If that's part of it, then yes, we'd continue and request that Mr. King submit something to the commission.
That's all I'm asking, and then I would feel more comfortable voting. And I don't think you want to risk, well, it's up to you. I don't know if you want to risk a vote with 3 members that aren't completely happy.
I want you to have everything you need to make an informed decision.
Okay, and he's more or less said what he'd like to say. Did you have something else to say?
Yeah, we get a chance to, I'm sorry. Learning. Would we get a chance to look at the report as well? I mean,
It's a public hearing, yes.
okay,
Ask Aaron.
Well, yeah, no, absolutely. I just want to make it clear. I don't think we're getting a full report. I think we're going to get a write-up
gonna
from
get
Stephen
something,
King. It's
Aaron.
probably going to be a page or 2
That's fine.
explaining
Right.
why he's comfortable with the encroachment of the above-ground pool into the 30-foot easement, and some explanation as to why this plan doesn't obstruct the town's rights and what it's trying to, what that easement is for.
okay.
But I don't think it'd be
So if
fair to
he-
call it a
You
report.
know, we don't have to keep going. If he's agreeable to continue, let's make a motion to continue, no?
Yeah, we could. It just, are we up against doing work this fall? Is something going to be done? So 2 weeks really doesn't matter?
No.
Okay, because after that November 10th meeting, we don't meet for another month.
Yeah, well, who's putting a pool in the winter anyway, right?
Get the right price.
Get the right contractor.
And also, too, it's getting a little late in the season to try to do any type of grading activities and hope to get anything to grow.
Just a point, I apologize to butt in again. And Georgia, in debriefing me for tonight's meeting, I'm not aware of the action deadline, so I don't know if the continuance needs to cover an action deadline as well. You're inside,
Well, if he's agreeing to a continuance,
That's fine. I just want to make sure there's not a,
There is not, thank you for that,
The
though.
applicant's requesting continuance, right?
Yep, there's no issue there.
it's not an A&R.
That's right,
Good point. Yeah.
that's right. If we continued beyond 21 days, then that could be an issue.
Right.
Okay, is there any other public comment before we go to a vote, sir?
Yeah, that's fine. Just if, say we get, who did we get in the report from? I'm sorry.
Stephen King, the town engineer.
Okay, and we feel good about it, or he approves it. What remedies are there for the neighborhood if it doesn't work? I mean, if we do get flooding, if we probably needed a bit better drainage area.
That's why we're getting the report.
Okay.
Right, and
Well,
I
just
think,
wanted to-
I think that
I know.
as the commission hinted at, I think, and maybe we can have Stephen touch on this a little bit, since we're continuing, maybe we can ask him to address the overall concerns that we're hearing about the neighborhood. Because again, I think what the commission is trying to balance is this pool exacerbating that condition? It seems to me, just dropping in on this, there's a bigger issue here, and I think maybe it'd be helpful to have that as kind of a part
But
B
that's- we
to
have-
that write-up.
That's what we have to decide. Is this pool part
Right.
of the bigger problem or not?
Right.
Or is it just
And I think staff was of the mind it was not, but I think we need to articulate that to give you some comfort. The bigger question is what happens if in year 2, year 3, things start to break down? Again, stamped engineer, our town engineer is also a registered civil. Everyone's doing their best, and I know you might not believe it, but we're not here to help anybody out. We're looking out for everyone's best interest, and sometimes, we are short of the mark. But I think if we can start to talk about that bigger conversation with that problem B for the neighborhood, we can start a dialogue outside of this particular filing to see what we can do to help the neighborhood in this situation.
There's no, we don't have any problem with you guys, the way you're doing your job. I know you have to go through this process and
No, I mean,
everything, but,
We don't hit a home run every time.
no,
so-
but it's pretty much, I think Mr. Brinkley said it well. It's the smell factor on this.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
Ma'am?
Diane Brinkley, 6 Cortlandt Road. I have a question for the commission. I know you touched upon the fact that the fill that was put in, not just under the pool, but in the backyard, is going to have to be removed, and that section of the property is going to have to be put back the way it was. Am I correct in that?
I don't think
I
so.
don't know about that.
I think the proposal is to grade back there to make sure the water flows from right to left.
So this wetlands or conservation land was filled. And it wasn't just filled under the pool, it was filled in other areas of that property. I know you were led to believe in the previous meeting that there was sand brought in for underneath that pool, and that's not true. So does the property need to be put back to the original state, except for the area of the pool? That's my question.
Well, you can ask the applicant.
So I touched on it a little bit with respect to that pipe that was put in the backyard. A pipe was laid down that really wasn't doing anything. I think the hope was to let water continue to flow, and some material was put on top of that pipe. I was told inches. So yes, that material would be removed at the same time. That area would be loamed and seeded back to what it was.
And that's material that was brought in to cover the pipe,
That's my understanding, yes.
so that'll be removed?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you.
Yep.
Does that answer your question?
All right, go,
1 second, Mike.
Mr. Dale.
Okay, just one, I'm sorry, sir, go ahead.
Last guy.
Bob O'Regan, I live at 2 Meadow Lane, and just wanted to say every March and sometimes in November, when the snow melts, I get water continuously down my cellar. and I'm pumping out water for up to 3 weeks at a time, and it never stops. And I've been told that it's because the ground is frozen. It's not frozen, it's frozen near my house, but it's also frozen down by the area there. And the water keeps coming and coming and coming. I can't do anything down my cellar, and I dread the day that we have a power shortage and that water fills up my whole cellar.
Where are you, sir, on that?
On 2 Meadow Lane,
Where
right
are
at the
you?
beginning.
I think it's up in the top right corner.
Down in here, I believe.
Yes,
Oh, okay.
and it doesn't stop, and I have my pumps, I'm going continuously. It goes out and then recirculates back and forth.
Well, the whole neighborhood's on the side of a hill, more or less.
Well, my house is set down from the street a little bit.
Down low?
So you're down
Yeah.
low.
And over the years, the area we're talking about next to the pool, has that ever been maintained, cleaned? I mean, right now, my street is filled with leaves. And I know that that area down there has to be filled with, filled with leaves. And all the trees are down. It's a mess down there. And it's never been maintained. And I can't see how the water can flow that easy. We've been told that it does go through, the water does run, but why doesn't it run in March and in November? It's not running, and we're talking about putting a pipe in there, which I think is a great idea, either there or on the side of the pool. Why can't that grade go down further than it is? Were you talking about 9/10 or an inch? That doesn't seem like it's gonna do very much.
I can answer that.
Go ahead, please.
So if we lower the grade in the backyard where it's maintained lawn any lower than it is, it's going to be a BVW. It'll turn into a wetland
Yeah.
year-round. It's very, very close to being a wetland now.
If it's a wetland, the water would go through it. That's what we're here for.
Not always.
No.
Not always.
Well, if it's running from north to south, when it hits that area, why wouldn't it stop all year round? It should be running through, it should be free to run through,
If we lower that grade anymore, it would be unusable back there. It would be
unusable for what?
all wet. Well, it's their backyard where they play and they use it. If it was a
One
wetland, they
flow from
wouldn't.
one to the other.
Not if the water's running.
It would still be a wetland, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, can we?
Okay,
That, just one,
My last comment, you mentioned about checking this for, I missed it, 3 or 4 or 5 years. I'd like to extend that significantly. That would be my ask.
okay. Well, that's the point I was about to make. Take advantage of this, this continuance, and one of our conditions was going to be that the applicant provide a maintenance statement every year on the condition of the easement. So, just be prepared for that.
Sure.
All right, are we all set here?
I
We have to
think
continue
so.
this.
All right, you
Yes.
know what? I'd like to make a motion to continue this matter of 5 Cortlandt Road to our next scheduled date of November 10th, 2022, to allow input from Stephen King.
Okay, motion's been made.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you
Okay.
very much.
Thank you.
We'll see
You did a
you,
good job, but we still want to...
Thank you.
Okay. Is there any other old or new business, Aaron, that we need to be aware of?
No.
Okay, can someone make a motion that we adjourn, please?
I make a motion that we adjourn the Conservation Commission of October 27th.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you all.
Thank you, Aaron.